Alright guys, so I have hesitated to make this video because I don't have very many nice things to say about bitsa. I did not have a very positive experience and I think it was a giant waste of time. And I don't want to bother just like making a negative video, but at the same time, I think that there are things that if you're a new teacher in California, you really need to know about bitsa. I had no idea what it even was. I just kind of like caught a glimpse of something about bitsa in like one of the last days of one of my credential classes. I didn't know how to pay for it. I didn't know what the time commitment was going to be. I didn't know what was expected of me. So I thought I would just answer some of those questions for you now if you are a new teacher in California who has to go through bitsa in order to clear your credential. Okay, so that being said, I'm gonna try and just go through like bullet points about bitsa and just give you like unbiased facts and try and leave my whining out of it, but I don't know how successful I'll be at that, but I'm gonna try. I'm really trying. Also, what the heck is happening with this like weird hair? It's bothering me. Okay, anyway, what is bitsa? bitsa stands for Beginning Teacher Support and Assessment. It is 100% assessment. There is no support, but it's something that you have to do in order to clear your credential. So you get your credential and you're so excited and you did all this work, but now within the next 5 years, you have to clear it somehow. So the other way that you could go is the induction process, and that would be through a university. And so I think that's usually just 1 year, but it's like actual college classes. And you have to pay for it, but you're probably gonna pay for bitsa anyway. So even though I didn't do the induction process, I think I would suggest it. From the people who I know that have done it, I would suggest that actually. But if that's not really an option for you, then you just do the bitsa process, and so that is 2 years. And remember, you have to clear it within 5 years of getting your credential. Okay, so in bitsa's defense, teachers have always had to clear their credentials somehow, and it used to be that you would just take like continuing education units. So on your own, you would just go find some classes about teaching or about your content area, and you would just take those classes, usually online or something, and then submit the proof that you took them to the CTC. I would much prefer that. I wish it was still that way, but I think they probably tried to like streamline it for people. Benefit of the doubt here, maybe they just tried to like make it easier for new teachers and just give them a process through their district that they could go through and get their credential cleared. So related to that, another reason that I'm making this video is because there just aren't a lot of people at your school probably who even understand like what you're going through or who can answer your questions, because people who became teachers like more than 13 or 14 years ago didn't have to do bitsa. That was just not a thing yet. And then no one's been hiring new teachers for the past couple of years. So the second newest teacher at your school has probably been working there for like 10 or 11 years, and their bitsa process might have been a little different. So I finished my bitsa program, not this school year that just ended, but the year before that. So I'm like a year out of it. So hopefully the things that I did will relate to what you have to do now. Okay, so why do you have to do bitsa besides the fact that the state makes you, or they will take away your credential? What they're going to tell you is that there are all these new teachers who quit in the first 2 years of teaching, and so they wanted to provide them with some support so that they wouldn't quit. That makes zero sense. There's no way that's the reason. So I'm just like waiting for them to give me a different reason, because I know that that is not it. The only thing that ever made me want to quit teaching in the first 2 years was bitsa. It was never the kids, never the parents, not the school, nothing else besides the stress of bitsa. It's pretty obvious though that it's like a weeding out process, so I think it's not a coincidence that usually it takes 2 years to complete bitsa, and usually you're a probationary employee for 2 years, and then after that you would get tenure, which just makes it a little bit harder to get rid of you if you're really terrible. So I have a feeling it's more of like a weeding out process, which is fine. As a taxpayer, I appreciate that, so that I don't have to pay the salary and the pension of some terrible teacher for 40 years. But if you're a good teacher and you go in and you are really trying and you're really organized and you put a lot into your lessons and you put a lot into your relationship with your kids, bitsa is not going to do anything for you. It doesn't improve your teaching or help you at all. The thing about it is that it just takes up a lot of your time, and as a new teacher, that's the one thing you don't have to spare. You've got energy, you've got ideas, you've got education, you know your content, you know you love your kids, but you don't have any time. It's still taking you a long time to get everything graded because you haven't really gotten a system worked out yet. You're trying to call all the parents of the kids who are behavior problems because you really want to nip it in the bud. You're having to create out of thin air all of your curriculum and your banners and your PowerPoints and your worksheets and everything. You might also be in a master's program or something like that. So just be prepared that all of your free time will be taken up by BTSA, and you're gonna have to sacrifice some of the things that you would like to do in your classroom in order to get this work done. And I'm struggling here. I'm really trying not to be negative. I'm trying not to make just a whiny video, but I'm just trying to be honest with you and tell you exactly what to expect. I'm afraid I'm gonna like end up in a ditch somewhere. All the BTSA people at the state are gonna find me and disappear me. I have a little bit more bad news that I just want to get out of the way right up front. So, do you have to pay for BTSA? It really depends. So, when I got my first job, I worked in a pretty small district and they hadn't hired new teachers for a really long time. They had just gone through quite a few years of layoffs, and the next newest teacher after me had been hired like 12 years ago. And within the whole district, I think the situation was pretty similar. So they shut down their BTSA program, which makes sense. I mean, I don't blame them for that because they just really didn't have any teachers to support or assess. And so they just told me to go to a different district that still ran a BTSA program and just join up with them. So I was like, okay, that's pretty easy. So I found one 20 or 30 miles away and I asked if I could join theirs and they said yes. And theirs was free, as long as you worked in their district. But if you came from a different district, it was $2,000 a year. So $4,000 total for the entire program. And that was really rough for me because I was actually only a 60% employee. And so my paychecks were not even $2,000. Like my monthly paycheck was not even $2,000. So that $2,000 fee was more than 10% of my yearly income. So I've always had kind of like an overdeveloped sense of justice. So I was like, this is not right. They can't just do this to people. So I started researching and looking into the legality of this. Like, can they just do this to me? So I found out that the state of California gives every single district money to run a BTSA program. Now, I don't know if my district had gotten this much, but I know for a fact that there are some districts that get $500,000 to run BTSA programs. Maybe there are some that get more, maybe some that get less, but I know that there are some districts that get $500,000. But my district was not running a BTSA program, so I was like, well, maybe I can go to my school board and ask if they could use some of that money to pay for my $2,000 fee. So I went to a school board meeting and I wrote a speech and I explained to them my situation and they said, nope, good luck. Figure it out on your own. Even that, I was like, oh, excuse me, what? So I looked into that and it turns out that's legal because they have something called Tier 3 flexibility, and so they could take that, let's say it's $500,000, they could take that $500,000 and use it for anything else they want, and that's technically legal, just super unethical and shows that your district doesn't care about new teachers and investing in them at all. So to be honest, like that made it really hard for me to respect the whole process because I'm like, okay, the state makes you do this and then they give money to your districts to do it, and then my district was putting all kinds of pressure on me to do it as well, but I'm like, okay, but you stole all the money and you're not even running a program, so you're making me travel and you're gonna make me pay for it on my own and you don't even pay me full time. I should note that I loved that job that I had my first year. I loved the school, I loved the kids, I loved my colleagues, but the whole BTSA situation was really terrible. And honestly, my union should have fought for it. They should have made sure that there was money to pay for BTSA teachers, but when you go through these times where you're not hiring a lot of new teachers, nobody thinks about them, and for most of the people in charge, it's been like years and years and years since they were ever a new teacher, so you as a new teacher usually just get hung out to dry. And I think that kind of a situation just really undermines the whole BTSA process. I just think that makes it seem really disjointed and actually not very important if people aren't going to fund it, and that just kind of gave me a really bad taste in my mouth for BTSA from the beginning. However, there was some good news. So then my second year of teaching, I accepted a full-time position in a different district, and they did something pretty smart because they were a small district also, and they hadn't hired that many new teachers either, but they teamed up with some other small districts in the nearby area, and they just all did a BTSA program together. And they paid for it. So I was so grateful that I got to do a BTSA program. It still wasn't in my district. It was still a little bit of a drive to go to the meetings and stuff, but it was free. So I wasn't actually paying to be super annoyed and do tons of meaningless work. So now I'll just let you know kind of the time commitment and the work commitment and what you're actually gonna have to do. So first of all, there are monthly meetings that are 2 hours. And every district's probably a little bit different, but this is how we did it in my second district anyway. So we would have meetings from like 4 to 6 once a month, and they were just presentations on stuff that you learned in your credential program and stuff that you do in your weekly PDs at your school site anyway. So we'd have like 2 hours of English learner strategies, and we'd be like, cool, I paid a university, an accredited university, like thousands and thousands of dollars to take a whole semester long class on this, and I literally do this in my classroom every single day, and we've had like 5 professional developments on it, but thank you for repeating all the information. And the attitude of my BTSA program anyway was just that like our credential programs hadn't taught us anything, and they were going to be the ones to teach us how to teach. And it was kind of weird. So at least those are only once a month. Then pretty much for an hour a week, that's usually your time commitment, you have to meet with your support provider, and they are the person that's going to help you fill out all of your paperwork. So my first year, I actually had a really wonderful support provider, and I really liked her. And then the second year, I just felt like my support provider did not have my best interests at heart at all. So again, they say that it's support and assessment, but there was zero support. I had a meeting with my support provider the day after we had a really dramatic incident at my school. Like, I won't get into it, but let's just say there was a SWAT team and we were on the news, and I was super shaken up. This was the very beginning of the year. I didn't know how to handle this. This was only my second year teaching, and I was like, please help me with this. What am I supposed to do today? I have no idea. I need advice. I need help. Literally the words that came out of her mouth were, BTSA comes first. We have paperwork to do. And I was like, okay. So again, that was just another indication to me that this is just all about getting paperwork done, and it's not really about supporting teachers. I have some friends who are support providers, and they are amazing, and I'm sure that the majority of support providers are really good, but it's just kind of the luck of the draw. And to be honest, after that, I didn't really care. I was just like, whatever, let's just get this paperwork done. I know that this is not for me, this is just for the sake of getting paperwork done, so let's just meet and get it over with. So as far as all that paperwork, this is the binder that I had, and I just flipped around the cover because I don't want to like out my district, but I'll just give you a sense of what you have to do. And it's basically the same both years in a row, and where there are little differences, I'll just let you know. Okay, so you start with Module A, and there are 6 separate worksheets in this module, and you just fill out information about your district, about your school, about your kids. You are supposed to, for example, type in all of your students' names and their phone number and an alternative phone number and their email, and if they have special needs, and if they're an English language learner, and medical conditions and all that stuff, which is absolutely great information to have. And I do have that information on my iPad at all times at the touch of a button. I can just click on Aries. It literally gives me those exact things. So I guess it wasn't that big of a deal to like look at my iPad, type in the information to my computer, like, okay, name, phone number, alternative phone number, okay, email address, okay, and then like fill out all this other information. But you know, it took about 5 hours. You're probably gonna have to put in about 5 hours to get that one done. Just didn't feel like a very good use of my time. I would never like refer to that piece of paper. If I needed information on a kid, I would just go back to my iPad. And then you have to do the same thing with like all of the administrators at your school, and the nurse and the curriculum specialist and the EL specialist and the special education teacher and the psychologist and the district psychologist and all of that. And I guess it's handy to have it all in one place, but again, that's going to be like another 5 hours or so typing in all of their email addresses and their phone numbers and their extensions and looking everybody up. Then you have to write about like the community around your school, which is actually, I thought that was a pretty useful exercise to do. And then you also talk about your classroom environment and why you chose to set things up the way you did. And again, that one is not too painful. So if you're in the same district during year 2, you can repeat a lot of the information like about your school district and your community, but you would just type in like a new set of names for your kids. And then also, like, since I was middle school, I just chose one class period. So it wasn't like all 175 of my kids, it was just like 35. And then if you're an elementary school teacher, you would just do your class. So just thought I would clarify that in case you thought I had to do like 175 of these. No, I didn't. I would still be working on it if I did. Module B is like a assessment by your support provider, and they come in and just observe you teaching and then just like give you feedback. And you have to kind of like respond to their feedback and talk about your goals for your teaching and what you want to do and reflect on your observation, which is not terrible. Those are probably things you should be doing, and it's good to get feedback from someone who's been there before. Module C is probably the hardest and the longest and the most work. So when you get to that point in the year where you're on Module C, cancel all your other plans because you won't have time for nothing. For this one, you have to develop a focus question for your inquiry. So you're trying to find out like the best way to teach a unit. And so you write up your plan for teaching this unit. You have to show that you put in like hours outside of school to like research or read a book or go to a conference, and then you just get to write all about it. And you observe some other teachers, which is always helpful. Actually, that's always a good thing to do as a new teacher. So you're going to answer questions like, as a result of the inquiry process, what was the impact on instructional practices and student achievement? List specific evidence. So like you can do that. I'm sure you know that in your mind. It takes a long time and a lot of effort to put it into words. But this is the proof for the state that you are trying to learn from your teaching and make it better every time and make sure that you reach all the students you possibly can. So again, it's not like something horrible. It's just something that's really, really time consuming. So like, for example, one of my focus questions was, how do I engage all students in a variety of learning experiences that accommodate the different ways they learn? Kinesthetic, visual, verbal, etc. And then there are these things called CSTPs that I still don't even know what that stands for, but it's like teacher standards or whatever, like things that teachers should be doing. So like mine was connecting subject matter to meaningful real life context, which I like doing, so that's a good goal to have. So I won't go through all of these. There are 7 super long worksheets that you have to fill out. Oh no, 8 super long worksheets. This is like depressing me. And I don't even have to do it anymore. I'm done, but I'm depressed for you. Oh, okay. You have to keep student work and make note of like all of the test scores. Like if you gave a pre-test at the beginning and a post-test at the end, you have to make sure you keep all those scores. Don't give those back. On the unit that you are teaching, make sure you like keep everything and don't really return their stuff till after, because you're gonna need it. Obviously, it's better teaching practice to give them quick feedback, but don't do it on this one because it's not about the students, it's about your paperwork. Okay, I'm gonna tone it down, we're almost done. Okay. Then Module D, your first year, it's just like a reflection on your teaching, like how you're going to make it better next year, what things really worked, what things didn't. Again, great things to think about, takes tons and tons of time. Your second year, you take that and you turn it into kind of like a presentation. And like, for example, I just put it on like my iPad and had a little keynote presentation. And then I explained my unit to some lady at the district office. And then I had to make like a poster board, like science project thing. We all did. And then like administrators and year 1 students would come around and talk about it. My husband just came in actually. This was his first day of school at his new school that he's teaching at, so I'll hurry up so I can go ask him how it went. So anyway, you have to do some kind of like presentation that the year 1 students and administrators walk around and look at, and no one really cares about it, but then you're done and you just get to continue doing the job that you were already doing, and it's lovely. Okay, so just a couple pieces of advice for you then. Find out as soon as possible, if you are getting hired by a new district, what their BTSA deal is. Do they pay for it? Do they offer a program? Are you going to just do the induction process, or how are you going to handle it? And now we have like this new LCAP funding model. So I wonder if that kind of changes like the BTSA funding and where it can go. So I don't know, even though that stuff is super boring, it's your money, you're the one that's going to be affected. So I would try and find out about that as soon as possible. Also, keep in mind that your support providers are being paid. They're being paid thousands of dollars to help you. So make sure that you meet at times that are good for you. Make them work around your schedule. This is something they're getting paid for, and you are either not getting paid or you're having to pay for it. So you're probably new and you're just excited to have a job and you want to please everybody and you don't want to ruffle any feathers, but just stand up for yourself a little bit and make sure that you meet at times that are good for you and you talk about the things that you need to discuss. If you feel comfortable with that, ask if you can always leave like the last 15 minutes of the meeting to talk about things that you're concerned about in your classroom. The sad thing to me is that new teachers do need so much support. They have so many questions. There are so many things that other teachers could provide to them, but that's just not actually what BTSA is. So it's kind of a bummer that there like is this void in that new teacher experience, and instead of it being filled, you just have to do even more work that you don't have time for. But if you have specific questions, or if you just need to vent or just complain to somebody, feel free to find me on Instagram, find my Facebook page or something like that, and I'm here to listen. I can give you advice. If there's somebody else in your BTSA program who's going through it with you that's willing to like work on school profile worksheet together, then maybe that would make it a little bit less painful. I didn't have anyone else at my school to work with, so I'd always wished that I did. But if you do, I would try and take advantage of that. Make sure you do just get all of the work done and do it well enough to pass, because you don't want to have to be redoing any of this. And if you are a passionate teacher and this is what you love to do, there are going to be lots of things in your teaching career that feel really pointless, and unfortunately that's just part of the job. And I think BTSA is way worse than anything else, but there are going to be more things that you just kind of have to like suck up and do it, and not complain about it too much, and just get that paperwork filed or just go to that professional development meeting or whatever. It's just part of being an adult in general, I guess. So just look at this as like your little hazing process into becoming a teacher. Celebrate big time when it's over, and then do whatever you can to help the new teachers at your school who are going through it after you. So anyway, I'm sorry this was kind of such like a downer video. This is something that I'm sort of passionate on one hand because I think new teachers really do need help, but I was just so disappointed with the whole process of BTSA. I just think it's really, really flawed. So I hope that this prepares you a little bit as a new teacher, and I hope that I don't end up in a ditch tomorrow if I disappear. You know why. Best of luck with this new school year, especially to you new teachers, and I hope you have a great experience and that they pay for your BTSA and that it's wonderful and useful and you have the best support provider ever. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye.